Welcome to Web Handling. My name is Dave Royso. I am very excited to continue this new series on things that you should know. In this series, we discuss what coders need to know about their nearest customer, that is, the winder. For it does no good to code a brilliant product that is easy and economical to make and that the end-use customer loves, if you can't wind it. In the last clip, we discussed how tiny variations of thickness profile of the web can cause huge troubles. In this clip, we discuss the second most important web product design issue. The number 2 thing that coders need to know about winders is almost as important, and that is, but in our we cannot bend it. We cannot concentrate. We cannot I hope I've made the case that this is something every coder needs to know about winders. Thank you so much for your attention. Any questions? I hope that I've gotten your attention. You need to pay attention because some coded products cannot be wound in any useful sense of the word. Yes, you can design and make unwindable products. Unwindable in 3 ways. The worst case, which is uncommon, is if it can't be wound at all. The next case is where the roll can't be wound to useful roll diameters or widths, given your winding machine and your winding machine settings, or perhaps with any winder in any settings. The final case is the most common, and that is, it can be wound to the desired sizes, but the internal rejection or customer complaints are unprofitably high. In this clip, we will focus on what may be the most underappreciated of web properties, and that is the coefficient of friction, or COF for short. Here, we specifically mean the 2 sides of the web that are in contact inside the winding roll, namely the A to the B or the top to the bottom sides. Friction with other surfaces, such as smooth metal, is not relevant to this discussion. There are many ways to measure friction and many issues to consider. However, to keep this discussion short and on topic, I will simply state that while static friction might be more relevant and is the most common measurement, dynamic friction usually has far less variation in its measurement and thus has its own pluses. In any case, if the friction is too low or too high, we can have problems, perhaps debilitating problems at the winder. If the Web-Web COF is too low, you may not be able to wind or unwind large rolls without the most common type of telescope. We cover the Type 1A and Type 1B telescope, as well as other types of telescopes in great detail in our Web 101 class, so that it is not needed to be repeated here. Note that Type 1 is the most common type of telescope and is a risk on center winders and center winders with lay-on rolls, and center surface winders and center unwinders. Thus, this is not the type of interest for surface winders and the very rare surface unwinder, as well as for other telescope types. Again, my apologies, but there is far too much to cover here, so please see the literature or my Web 101 class for details. If, on the other hand, the Web-Web COF is too high, you risk both out-of-round rolls and, at higher speeds, pounding winder vibration, or tension-slapping unwinding at your customer. These problems, while studied, are very complicated and thus cannot be covered here. All we will say is that most tissue and nonwovens are at great risk here, but also many paper grades are as well. However, we can also get out of round rolls with self-tacky or adhesive products. Pressure-sensitive adhesive tapes are the poster child of trouble for out-of-round problems. What is common in all of these very different webs and very different chemistries is a high Web-Web COF. If all of this were not complicated enough, we have one more complication. That is, the Web-Web COF tends to decrease with time on many products. That means that while you might be able to wind a product without telescopes, your customer might not be able to unwind that same roll without a telescope, simply because in the intervening weeks the COF dropped measurably and significantly. On the other hand, paper grades that vibrated when wound in the paper mill might be rewound at the customer some months later with little or no difficulty. Again, because the COF dropped during storage. The bottom line of this and the previous clip is this: DFM, or Design for Manufacturability. In this regard, you must consider the winder as your immediate customer, for it does no good if you have a lovely web that can't be wound in your plant or unwound by your customer. Let me summarize one of the many points I teach in the DFM section of my Web 101 course, as well as the DFM series on this all-web handling channel on YouTube. That is, you can do almost anything you wish on the substrate. However, as we saw in the previous clip, the overall thickness must be level enough. Also, as we saw in this clip, the outer molecules belong to the winder. If you make them too slippery, you may not be able to wind or unwind large rolls. However, if you make them too sticky, you risk out-of-round rolls and pounding vibration. Thank you so very much for allowing me to share this Design for Manufacturability summary. These are just some of the things that coders and winders both need to know. I hope I've made the case that even tiny variations in thickness across the width of the machine can cause huge problems. I hope I've made the case that in order to wind well, the COF may need to be confined to a range. Stay tuned for even more must-know topics of web handling. Please like and share and subscribe. See you next time.